Hey, and welcome to VFX For the Cut. If you're here for the macros, you're in the right place. Recently, I was working as a VFX editor on Apple's dark matter, and I came up with some stuff to automate some of the repetitive tasks that I was doing every day. And no, it wasn't AI. I used macros. What I'm about to show you could save you hundreds of mouse clicks and button pushes per day, and it doesn't require a single data center to do it. Okay, so what is a macro? Simply put, a macro is a sequence of computer instructions that automate repetitive tasks, and you can trigger it with a single button. Now, in order to make a macro, first you have to decide what kind of macro could I use to speed up my work. For this first lesson, I want to keep it simple. I want to make a macro that helps me search for music. It should open every music cue in a bin and play the beginning and the end of each song. Then it should keep going until I find the one I like. So in the Avid, what we're going to do is figure out which buttons we're going to press in which order. It helps to jot down some quick notes so that we know we have a good game plan. Okay, so we'll start by selecting the clip, then we want to open it using return. Next, to make sure the cursor goes at the top of the clip, we'll hit the home key. Next, I want to press play, then it should play for 5 seconds and then stop. I'll teach you how to do that in a few minutes. Now we want to go to the end of the clip by pressing the end key, then jump back 5 seconds and play from there so we can hear the ending. Now that we've heard the beginning and the end of the clip, I'll go back to the top and leave the cursor there. And now I want to get back into my bin, but I have to do it without using the mouse. So I'll hit Find Bin, and then I'll use the down arrow key to advance to the next clip. Then we'll perform the same sequence of actions on the second clip in the bin. This can loop as long as we'd like to until we find the song that we want. And your button finger won't get tired at all. Love that. So today I'm going to be working in a software that a lot of editors are using called Keyboard Maestro. After you watch this video, if you're interested in trying out Keyboard Maestro for yourself, you can click the link in the description and they'll give you 20% off if you use the code VFX for the cut when you buy it. Something else to keep in mind is that for every key that you want to hit, it has to be mapped onto your keyboard. So what I've done is use the shift modifier and mapped all of the keys that I want to use for this lesson on that page. I'll save a copy of this keyboard layout for you guys if you want to download it afterwards. All right, let's make our first macro. I'll launch Keyboard Maestro and show you around. So over here are the groups or folders of pre-made and custom macros. Some of these are ones that I've built, but there's a lot of handy pre-made ones that come with it too. We're going to start by making our first macro by pressing the plus button below. I'm going to call this one Audition Music. We need to assign a trigger that will be used to start running the macro, and I'm going to select the hotkey trigger, which is my preferred way to go. I'll make it F1. The building blocks of a macro are called actions, so we can just tap on this box and it'll bring up our available actions. Type a keystroke is the action I use the most, so I can drag it in here. Now, if you remember, the first button we want to hit to start our music player macro is return. This one defaults to return, so it's already set up. But what I like to do is come in here and label everything according to what it does, as opposed to what button it pushes. I'll just call this one Load Clip. So we've created a macro. Let's see if it does what it's supposed to. So I've got it mapped to F1. I come over here and hit F1. It opens the clip. This is a success. There's one more thing that I'd like you guys to do. You want to be sure you don't activate a macro in the wrong program, so I like to limit mine to only start if Media Composer is active. So I want to put in an if-then-else command, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, the condition we want is called application condition. So it says if this application, Avid Media Composer, is at the front. By at the front, they mean if it is active. Then it will run this macro. So what I'll do is put load clip inside the if-then-else command. Next, I'll search for the word cancel, and I'll select cancel all macros. So basically, if Media Composer is not active, all macros will be canceled. Okay, now we're ready to build the rest of this based on the notes that we made earlier. Now we want to hit the keystroke for home, which will bring the cursor to the top of the clip. But rather than going and getting a new action, I'm just going to duplicate the one I've got and make changes to it. So we pull down this menu, select home for that, and I'm going to rename it Go Home. Now we'll duplicate this action and start our next one. The next action we want to take is to play the clip. So we could use the space bar, but I'm just going to go ahead and use our modified keyboard and enter Shift L, and I'm going to call this play forward. Okay, we want it to play for 5 seconds, but there isn't a button on the Avid that will play a specified amount of time, so we want the macro to wait 5 seconds before hitting stop. For that, we'll search for the pause action and drag it into the list. It defaults to 1.5 seconds, so I'll change that to 5 seconds. So it'll play, then do nothing for 5 seconds. Now we want to stop playing. So I'm just going to make a copy of this guy and drag it underneath. Pause on our keyboard is Shift K, So I'll add that keystroke and call it pause playback. Now we want to jump to the end of the clip and check out how the music ends. We'll pull down the menu and select End. Now we need to back up 5 seconds. In the menu, I'll look at keypad options. I want to bring up Avid's timecode entry box to type how far back I want to go. So I'm going to choose keypad minus, which will bring up the timecode box. The next action I'll add is insert text by pasting. So I'm going to drop that here. And we'll type 5:00. For commonly used commands, I've saved a bunch of actions I've built to my favorites folder so I can just drag them in. I need to hit return, so I'll drag in the return action from favorites. And then I want to play forward for 5 seconds and pause. Now you might recognize that play forward for 5 seconds and pause is something we've already built, so we can reuse it. But for efficiency, I'll group these 3 actions together into one macro within a macro. I'm going to select these 3 actions and right-click in this field. I'll pull down the menu and choose In Group, and then I'll select Group, and we've just grouped together these actions into one. I'll call our new group Play 5 Seconds. And you can save this in your favorites if you want. I'm just going to duplicate that and drag it down here. Cool. We want to park the cursor back at the front of the clip again, so I'm just going to duplicate Go Home and drag it to the bottom. Okay, great. Now we need to get back to our bin without the mouse. For this, we're going to type Shift-P, which is where Find Bin has been mapped on my keyboard. And then the last thing we want to do is jump down to the next clip. I'll pull down the list and choose Down Arrow, which will highlight the next clip. Okay, that's the last action in our sequence. Let's make our first loop. I'll say New Action and search for Repeat, and I'm actually going to put it at the top. It says if all conditions are met, repeat. I want it to repeat 10 times, and then I want it to stop. So I'm going to come all the way down to here. Maybe we should ungroup this whole list just to clean things up. You know, editors like to be neat sometimes. And then I'm going to name this Audition Top and Tail one time. So I'm going to drop that inside the repeat command. Okay, before you try any macro that loops, make sure you have Cancel All Macros mapped to a button you can hit if the macro acts up and you need to terminate the process. Okay, here we go. Let's hit F1 and sit back and watch. Okay, that's one cycle. The big question is it going to loop? Awesome. Sit back and drink your coffee. The macro's doing all the work. I'll speed this up, but it ran 10 loops and stopped. Think about it. If every cycle took like 10 keys and we listened to 10 cues, that means we turned 100 clicks into just one. And we did it all with a macro that we made in a few minutes. To show you how easy it is to customize, here's how I made it into a sound effects player by deleting some actions and adding a couple new ones. Next time we'll do one of my favorite VFX editing macros and learn some advanced macro tools. Try this stuff out in your own workflow. Hit me back with questions in the comments here. Like and subscribe. Follow for more.